Ladies and gentlemen, this is One Wrestling Goes Old School, episode number 3. If you don't know me, I am the Mark of the Masters, the man with the plan, Big Ray, here to stay to talk some old school wrestling today. And of course, I am joined by my tag team partner, the Encyclopedia of Pro Wrestling. I call him The Big Show, but now we know him as You Got The Show on Twitter, Bill Schuyler. And we are joined by Pro Wrestling Podcast Own Mr. Billy Ray Valentine. Billy Ray Valentine, you can follow him on Twitter at Billy Ray Hustle. Billy, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, guys? How's everything? Very excited to be on the show today.
Very cool. Very good. Bill, how was your week, my friend, so far?
Fantastic.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now check this out. Before I get into the show, 1WRESTLING.com, we're going to be having some, let's just say we're going to have a lot of content. On Monday nights, I'm going to be covering Monday Night Raw, so you can look for that. This show will be on now on Wednesdays. I'm not going to tell you. It's probably going to be like sometime in the morning, Bill, so I'm just letting you know that. And then, of course, you have Andre's Impact Reports on Thursdays. Of course, during the weekends, we have the pay-per-view coverage. And, of course, you can always go into Apter's Alley with Bill Apter. Follow him at Apter 1WRESTLING, where he also has the Apter chat. So we have a lot of content. 1WRESTLING.com is growing again. We're bringing in Billy Ray Valentine, who is a, as Andre Corbeil would say, a knowledgeable, passionate wrestling fan. He knows his wrestling. So, listen, we're going to do something a little different, guys. Now, every week we're going to have staple, what do we call that? Things that we do every single week all the time, right, Bill? Like a staple. We're going to do the Dream Match. We're going to be reviewing old school matches. But the first segment is going to be fun. We're going to switch it up. Maybe we'll do some old school video game reviews. Maybe we'll do some old movie reviews. And today, we are going to review, the OneWrestling.com family will review this movie, and the movie is Bodyslam. Guys, do you remember that movie Bodyslam in 1987?
Oh my God, indeed. What a fun movie that was for the time, and it still holds up today. It brings a smile to your face every time you see it, just because of just the hilarity of the characters, the wrestlers involved.
Billy Ray.
Man, let me tell you something. I saw it back when, but I revisited it for the show, and it was definitely an experience. If you're an old school wrestling fan, you'll definitely dig it. Otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, now, wrestling movies, they really get a bad rep. And I'm talking about movies like No Holds Barred, which is technically a wrestling movie. What else? I mean, now, a really good movie that I saw not too long ago was The Wrestler. That was actually, have you guys ever seen that movie?
It was great.
Yeah, I had not had a chance to see that. That was with Vern Gagne, correct?
No, my friend. No, my friend. I'm talking about the movie with now I can't remember the actor's name.
Mickey Rourke?
Mickey Rourke, yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was going way back in the day.
Going way back in the day. Back in the day with Bill Schuyler and the Can-Am Wrestling Show. Now, check it out. We're going to talk about this movie now. In 1987, I believe it was released May 21st. It was starring the guy from the A-Team, who was Face. You remember him? Dirk Benedict. Is that his name? Dirk Benedict?
Yeah, Dirk.
Roddy Piper was what was it? Quick Rick Roberts. Tanya Roberts, that she played Candace something, and then you had who else? You had Tunga Tom, who was played by Sam Fatu. Now, who is Sam Fatu, Bill? Do you know who that is?
That would be the Tonga Kid, is it not?
It is the Tonga Kid.
Yeah.
He has, and Lewis, he's related to
all the Samoans.
Basically,
the Samoan family tree.
Junior Fatu, The Rock, so on and so forth. So let's get now. Just really quickly, I'm going to give credit to the actual director of the film. It was Hal Needham. He actually directed films like Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run, Megaforce, so on and so forth. Now, that was really good movies. Now, I'm gonna ask your overall opinion on. Well, first and foremost, why don't you tell us a little bit, Lewis, after watching this movie, what kind of a nostalgic feeling it gave you?
Well, you know what? It was your typical '80s movie, even down to the cheesy entrance song, the cheesy introduction song. Good Lord, it's like something you can make in a Casio piano today. It was that crazy. But you know what, man? Like watching the movie took me back. Just the scenery, you know, the way the women looked, the way the men looked, it was crazy. And how young Roddy Piper looked. And Ric Flair was in it for a second. Yeah. And he looked like the Nature Boy, you know. And it was just so many different wrestlers. As a kid, just seeing these wrestlers on television at any point in time, because I didn't have cable television. So I was only, you know, I only had Superstars and Wrestling Challenge. And whenever they came on television, I wanted to watch it. So that was a privilege to me. Now watching it, it's you know, it's a little different take on it. It still took me back, and it was still very cool. But as far as a movie goes, it's questionable.
Now, Bill, I want to ask you really quickly. Now, if you really watch the movie again now with the eyes in 2014, the movie was, let's just say, politically incorrect. As of course we had the Korean bad guy, the mob owner, whatever the hell, and he actually was accompanied by the Wild Samoans. I don't know if you remember the guys that tore apart the Smilac, or as he would say, Smyrac's car.
Iraq. Oh, jeez.
What's your? Is there anything in the movie that actually stuck out to you that was memorable?
Roddy Piper stuck out. It showed that he was an actor, and he went on to make some quality films.
Oh, yeah.
He made a lot of video ones that weren't, and but he specifically stuck out as, out of all the wrestlers that were in there, as somebody who definitely had the chops to do a real role. Seeing the mentioning the Samoans, with seeing them guys fully clothed in those giant cheap suits just come there and just tear that car apart was hilarious.
Absolutely. Well, basically, the movie was based around the main character, and it was Harry Smilac. Now, this is basically a guy that was a music producer. At once, I guess he was successful, but he basically fell on some hard times, made some bad moves, so on and so forth. He owed a lot of money, and now, what I noticed about this movie, he also managed this really, I mean, I guess they were cool back then. I don't know if they were ever cool, but Kicks was the name of the group. Lewis, your opinion, since you are a musician and you had your own, didn't you have your own band too, buddy?
I did. We don't want to talk about that. Shh. We don't.
Why not?
It's just a joke, man. It was actually Kick with no S, because they actually made a reference to that in the movie.
Right. Sorry.
No, I mean, yeah, they brought it back to the rock and wrestling age. You know, in the 80s, that was the thing, the whole rock and wrestling thing. And I guess somebody thought it'd be a good idea to make a movie about it. So they combined the rock band that was a struggling rock band. This guy, what's his face? The guy from the A-Team. What was the character's name?
Harry Smilac.
Yeah, he had fallen on hard times, and he decided that he needed to make something work, so he went to this band that he had screwed over so many times, and he brought them in with these wrestlers that he fell head first into. Actually, he didn't even want to have anything to do with wrestling, but it all came together, and he had the brilliant idea of rock and wrestling. I wonder where he got that from.
Now, really quickly, Bill. Now his nemesis, his real nemesis. Well, he had a couple nemesis, I guess you would call it, but his major nemesis was Captain Lou. Not Albano, but Morano. Isn't it so funny how they couldn't actually use the wrestlers' names like
they would have had to pay Vince all that money, bro.
Yeah, that's right, brother. Else you're fired. But Captain Lou Morano, I'm sorry, the character was managing Axe and Hammer. Now, I know Axe, I think, was a wrestler in the AWA. I can't remember his name. The guy with the thin mohawk.
The mohawk. I don't know who he is either.
The other gentleman was the Barbarian.
It was the Barbarian. Really quickly, I know we're talking about the movie, but could you, Bill, why don't you tell me a little bit about the Barbarian? Anything that you know off the top of your head, your thoughts on him as a professional wrestler?
Yeah, the Barbarian had a great tag team with the
Warlord.
The Warlord.
Right.
Powers of Pain, of course, in the 80s. Going up against the Road Warriors. They had transitioned when Vince wasn't able to pick up the Road Warriors. He took the WCW's own NWA's copy of them, the Powers of Pain, brought them over. Mr. Fuji handled them. And then the Barbarian was a very top-notch wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
Warlord, not so much. He was just a big guy. But the Barbarian had all kinds of moves. And he also, if I recall, is also somehow interrelated with the Samoan lineage as well. And then further down the line, he had teamed up with Haku, who was Meng, when he came to WCW, and they were a great power tag team in the later WCW days. Part of Kevin Sullivan's Monster Factory of.
What was the name of that? What was the name of that group, Lewis? What was it? The Dungeon of Doom.
Dungeon of Doom.
Dungeon of Doom with what was this guy's name? Brutus the Barber Beefcake. He was dressed like a zebra.
The Zodiac.
Zodiac. What the hell was that about? Anyway.
Dude, he was. They gave him so many. They tried to. Hogan hooked him up with so many bad characters.
Oh, you gotta be. No kidding.
That whole Dungeon of Doom gimmick was awful. By the way, I should just state that.
Oh, we gotta talk about the Dungeon of Doom. And you know what? Maybe next week we can actually talk about the Dungeon of Doom, the characters that were in the Dungeon of Doom. My favorite character, the Yeti. Anybody? Anybody? The Yeti? Remember he was humping Hulk? Anyway, go ahead. What's up, Bill?
Hey, nothing for nothing. I could tell you exactly where and why the Dungeon of Doom was the way it was. If you want to talk about it now or down the road, you let me know.
Let's talk about it down the road, because that's a whole different show, brother. So we may do a Dungeon of Doom segment, which would be a lot of fun. But listen, basically, to go back to the movie, basically, let's just call him Roddy Piper and the Tonga Kid. We're basically going for the tag team titles. Smilac. It was a really, for me, I found it to be a really fun movie. Now, finally, at the end, obviously, everything works out. They perform, they mix the rock and wrestling, and when the rock and roll band Kick would play, the wrestlers would do better. It was so cheesy and so corny. But now, Lewis, do you remember some of the wrestlers that actually appeared? Because you remember during the big match for the tag team title, we had who was there? Do you remember?
Everyone was there. Classy Freddie Blassie was there. Yeah. Bruno Sammartino was there. Woo! The Nature Boy Ric Flair was there. You name them, they were all there. It was great. There was a ton more that I can't think of off the top of my head. It was a who's who of professional wrestling at the time.
Yeah, the Iron Sheik, I believe, was there. What was his name? Adnan.
General Adnan.
General Adnan El Casey was there. I mean, it was so. And again, it's just to look back at the cheesiness, the 8-track player, and the convertible, so on and so forth. But basically, everything ends up working out. And Smilac, they win the tag team titles. Now, if you actually freeze frame when they're holding up those titles, those are the cheapest looking rubber and plastic belts I've ever seen in my life. Were you gonna say something, Lou?
No.
Bill?
Not at all.
The best part about that is the whole movie was still, it was kayfabe. The wrestlers were kayfabe.
Yeah.
The villains were villains all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the managers were real. Captain Lou Morano was, Smilac, what are you doing?
Oh. What was Wrestling Talk, or Talk Wrestling? I can't remember. What was the segment?
Oh, it was Wrestle Talk.
What was what was the name of the freaking guy with the big glasses that he was a comedian back in the day?
Yeah, he was in all Hal Needham's movies back then too. I can't think of his name offhand.
It's fine, but he basically was like apparently
Nelson Riley.
Charles Nelson Riley.
Yes.
I can't remember the little person's name, but he actually played a really interesting character. He was the manager of all the little people, so on and so forth. One of the funniest segments, and I don't know if you remember that there were a group of nuns that were sitting in the audience. They were heels. They were like rooting for the bad guy. I thought it was pretty funny. But now, I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Now, not as a movie. We're not gonna rate this as a movie, but as a wrestling movie, as a sports entertainment movie. What do you give it, Bill?
As a wrestling sports entertainment film, I'd give it 4 out of 5, just for nostalgia facts. I enjoyed it.
All right, very cool, Billy Ray.
As a pro wrestling movie, out of 5 possible body slams, I give it 4. Full on Hulk Hogan WrestleMania 3 body slams.
Ooh, okay. Well,
I thought it was a good movie, man. I mean, as far as the nostalgia goes, there was a lot to take in if you're an old school passionate wrestling fan.
I'm going to give it 3 drop kicks out of 5, and basically I've watched a lot of other wrestling movies that I thought had better storylines. Now again, nostalgia, you cannot beat this movie. Everybody was in the movie, and again, the nostalgia of having a face from the A-Team on it, Captain Lou Albano, Roddy Piper, the Tonga Kid. I mean, it was really, really cool and different. And again, like Lewis, as you were mentioning, that they actually did incorporate the rock and wrestling connection, which was really, really a big thing. Really quickly, Bill, your thoughts on rock and wrestling really quickly.
Rock and wrestling changed the industry. WWE with WrestleMania, leading up to WrestleMania 1, if the rock and wrestling had not occurred and been what it was, WWF would not have became what it was, because it gave it the wide appeal on, nighttime news. Everywhere they talked about it was Cyndi Lauper. Was it David Wolf?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, huge.
And Captain Lou. They were
Mr. T.
Yeah,
I mean,
they were everywhere. And Hogan, they were everywhere.
Yeah. Lewis,
And
your opinion? I'm sorry.
Well, as far as the Rock and Wrestling goes, I didn't quite get it at the time. I was 4 years old. I was a big Cyndi Lauper fan, and she was running around the ring with Captain Lou. But in retrospect, what it did for the business was a big thing. It took pro wrestling and the World Wrestling Federation at the time to a different level, to a broader level, to a more mainstream level, allowing it to eventually become what it is today.
I agree. So all in all, again, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys have any suggestions on an opening topic for the show, whether it be a movie review, if you want to see one of your favorite old school wrestling games reviewed, again, I know Bill Schuyler's not a huge video gamer, but I am. I played wrestling video games since I think it was the Nintendo Entertainment System, the actual black box game, Pro Wrestling. Nice. I go all the way back there, and even before that, on the old I forgot what the hell the name of it was, the computer that my cousin owned. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. What's up?
Best pro wrestling game is Tecmo World Wrestling for the NES. I don't know if anybody played that, but it was just the greatest game ever.
If I could have reached over here, I actually have that physical copy.
That is the game. I used to use Dr. Gildo and give everybody the giant swing.
Dr. Gildo? Oh, you said Gildo. I'm sorry. Let's keep this PG, ladies and gentlemen. All right, very cool. So now we're going to move on to our next segment, and we're going to go over some old school wrestling. Now, we're going to tie in Captain Lou Albano because we just saw a movie that actually starred Captain Lou Albano. And, of course, during this time, well, you know what, Bill? I'm going to let you break down what's going on during this fabulous feud. Fabulous feud.
Not a problem. What we had here was the tag team champions of the world, WWF champions, the Dream Team, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Brutus Beefcake, managed by Luscious Johnny Valentine. They had taken the titles back in my neck of the woods at the Philadelphia Spectrum for Spectrum Wrestling. They held the titles for approximately 42 weeks, I believe it was, leading up to WrestleMania. They had an ongoing feud that had begun about 2 months prior, slowly but surely, with Captain Lou and the British Bulldogs. A lot of matches that were non-title matches, of course. They won some, lost some. Captain Lou finally got them at the last second to get onto the WrestleMania card. And by doing so, in my opinion, saved WrestleMania 2 from being a dog fest, because it's one of my most hated WrestleManias of all time. Absolutely.
Really?
This was the match of the night, hands down. Nobody came close.
Really?
Yeah, in
Billy
my
Ray,
opinion, yeah.
Billy Ray, I want to know your opinion on WrestleMania 2.
Well, I feel the same way. The highlight of my WrestleMania 2 experience was the British Bulldogs winning the tag belts. And I'm biased. Okay, the Dynamite Kid is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the Bulldogs win, and they did. Everything else was just kind of Refrigerator Perry didn't quite do it for me. You know, all the stuff that was going on.
Wow.
And I'm a big Hulkamaniac, so I dug that too. But WrestleMania 2 isn't one that sticks out in my mind. That's something that I want to rewatch and watch again.
So, Tama, you're telling me, guys, that the epic match between Nikolai Volkov and Corporal Kirshner didn't do it for you?
Didn't do it for me.
No.
No.
Really? But in all seriousness, no, come on. You had the boxing match. You did have the battle royal. I mean, I'm not saying the quality, but I mean these matches were over. These feuds were hot. Piper versus Mr. T, freaking Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy. Do you guys remember what the hell happened to Hulk Hogan on Saturday Night's Main Event, brother?
All I'm telling you is this: if WrestleMania 3 hadn't come off the way it did, I don't know if the WWF would have. I don't know if WrestleMania would have made it past WrestleMania 3 if that had been the same quality as WrestleMania 2.
Interesting. Billy Ray?
I got to say the same. I mean, I'm a big Hulkamaniac, and that was the reason I got into wrestling in the first place was Hulk Hogan. That's right there. So I definitely wanted to see him, wrestle King Kong Bundy. And I would even cry because I thought he was going to lose. I would tell my mom, I'm like, they're going to kill Hulk Hogan. He's going to die.
Yeah.
And, so I wanted to watch these things. It's something I wanted to watch. But WrestleMania 2, and I saw WrestleMania 2 after the fact. I already knew what had happened. But still, it was the Bulldogs that I wanted to see.
Well, I got to be honest with you guys, and I am going to agree with you 1,000%. Now, WrestleMania 2 in retrospect wasn't the best. I thought it was a little better than I mean, again, it's my personal opinion. I think it's a little better than you guys are saying it is. But the match of the night was definitely for the tag team title. It wasn't a really long match. Now, if I'm correct, the British Bulldogs actually had won, or it was they had won via disqualification on Saturday night's main event. You guys can correct me. Am I right, Bill?
Yeah, I believe you're correct on that. And a lot of the matches leading up to it were much better than the actual match at WrestleMania. That match at Saturday night's main event, all four guys really got it in. They had a match again at the Spectrum in Philly that blew it away. Boston Gardens. They were tearing it up on the house shows. And, whether it was nerves of the big night on WrestleMania, but it just didn't, it wasn't as great as the other ones, but unless you had the opportunity to see the matches you didn't know, this match was great. And it had it all. The only detriment, in my opinion, is, the Dream Team, Brutus Beefcake was still young, and Brutus Beefcake never really got much better than he was then. I'm not a big Beefcake guy.
You're talking about in the ring. You're talking in-ring wise because his character as Bruce the Barber Beefcake was so
huge.
over.
He was huge. Okay. But as far as wrestling skill, Greg the Hammer Valentine, who was in this match, the majority of the match, Brutus was only tagged in like 2 or 3 times and not for long. The Hammer was one of the best, and he was trained by Stu Hart as well, and it showed. And I think that's one of the reasons why he and the Bulldogs did so well in the ring together, was their training in the early days leading up to their arrival in the WWE.
If you don't mind, guys, can we? And I'm gonna direct this to Lewis, or I'm sorry, Billy Ray Valentine. Let's break down the management of the teams. Now, Lewis, we have Captain Lou Albano, who at this time had 15 tag team champions, and the British Bulldogs would obviously become the 16th, or if I think I'm correct.
16 champions.
16 champions. Yes, 16 times. Yes, and then on the other side, you had Luscious Johnny Valiant. Now, the British Bulldogs also had a very interesting character, and now we know him as the bumbling gentleman from across the pond, Sharon. Ozzy Osbourne was on their side. There was no Matilda back then. So why don't you give me your opinion on both managers really quickly before we jump into the actual match?
Well, as far as the management goes, I was a very, very young kid when this stuff was going on. They were sidebars for me. Ozzy Osbourne, I had no idea who he was at the time. It was all, Captain Lou, everybody knew who Captain Lou was, of course. But my interest in the match had little to do with the managers. It had everything to do with the chase of it. It was almost like if you compare it to Daniel Bryan winning the world title at WrestleMania 3. It was the same, at WrestleMania 30. It was the same kind of journey that the British Bulldogs took to get to the World Tag Team titles. So that the story of it was what was most intriguing to me at the time, watching them attain those belts. Captain Lou had such a large stable at the time. I just thought he was the man that, that almost like in the movie, almost like in Bodyslam, everybody has to go through this guy. Yeah. That's the way it looked to me.
Yeah, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Captain Lou Albano for me here. You grew up with him as well, Ray. He was a staple on Saturday mornings with the rubber bands in his face. And, I can remember seeing him actually wrestle at times with his teams in various measures.
When he was a heel, when he was
more heel, yes. Because at this point here, this is when he had made his face turn, obviously, with the Rock and Wrestling connection, the prior WrestleMania. And Luscious Johnny, I always liked him.
I did too.
He stood out.
Yes,
I don't think he got his
just due.
No, not compared to the other, not the classy Freddie Blassie and the Wizard and them. He kind of got left off to the side, but he had a lot to offer, and he was great on the mic, and they used him a lot in calling matches. back in the day, and he was great on the microphone. And of course, Ozzy Osbourne as the corner man. I also had no idea who Ozzy was back then either. No,
he was the guy that bit the head off a bat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Luckily, within a few years, I knew who he was, but at the time, I didn't. And you had they threw so many different stars into that area. You had Kathy
Lee Gifford,
Kathy Lee Crosby,
Gifford.
From That's Incredible. She was calling the match with Gorilla.
It was Gorilla and Mean Gene Okerlund. I was going to mention that. That was a really well called match for me.
They were great together. They should have done more together.
Oh yeah.
In the WWF, I'm surprised that they didn't, because Mean Gene was excellent.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I was listening to the match, the original call of the match, and I was like, damn, Mean Gene and Gorilla are good. They were so good, and they really told the story, and they just fed off of each other so well. And honestly, Kathy Lee was the star, but she was a
celebrity.
Yeah, she was a celebrity, a fan. She was really into it. I believe she was really into the match. Now
although she kept referring to them as the British Bulldozers.
Did she really?
Yes. Yes, she kept calling them the Bulldozers.
Even though they had pictures of bulldogs in their ass. All right.
Amazing enough, yeah.
During this match, I don't know if you guys remember this, Lewis. Now, did you rewatch the match, Lewis?
I did.
Okay. There was one spot that I thought was crazy, and to this day, I think it's one of the craziest bumps taken. And it wasn't something off the top of the rope onto tables or off the balcony. But when Brutus Beefcake has Davey Boy Smith from behind in the chicken wing, and he picks him up, and I thought he was gonna basically hit him with an atomic drop, but he throws him, and Davey Boy lands, takes the bump with the arm behind his back, injuring the shoulder or whatever. Like, really watch that bump. Like, he could have severely, and who knows, he probably did injure his shoulder, but that was a crazy bump. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he sold it very well, too, because I legit thought he was hurt at the time, and not too long ago, actually. I was a grown man, and I thought he was hurt, so if he wasn't, he did a great job at selling.
Now, it was... go ahead, Bill.
No, I was going to say, I definitely think, again, once again, Brutus was not up to snuff with them other gentlemen in the ring, and he very well may have mistakenly thrown him down the wrong way. And believe me, if he did, the British Bulldogs certainly grounded and pounded him for real. If not that night, they got him on another night, because you know how those guys were, especially Dynamite.
Especially Dynamite Kid.
Dynamite would whoop your tail.
Slap you in the face.
Yes.
Now, really quickly, I forgot to make mention that this did take place. Now, WrestleMania 2, it was in multiple venues, not just in one city. It was crazy how they did this. And it's amazing. If you watch the documentary on the WWE Network, not that we're promoting it, but I think it's a great network.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, like what they did back in what was it? I don't even remember, the 1986. 86 blew my mind. Now, this match took place in the Rosemont Horizon, and I believe it's in Illinois, like in Chicago.
Chicago, yes.
Okay, so it's Rosemont, Illinois. Am I wrong, or?
Yeah, it was the Rosemont Horizon.
Okay, so it wasn't Illinois, in Rosemont, Illinois, if I'm correct.
Right.
And one thing that I remember, and which was an important factor and ended up being a huge factor in the finish, was that they had two referees. Why, Bill? Why did they have two referees, Bill?
They had to have two referees because it was just with the likes of Captain Lou and Ozzy Osbourne on the outside, and Luscious Johnny, and there always was interference that was causing the Bulldogs to lose their matches. And Captain Lou was not above getting physical and involved with the teams as well. So the powers that be decided that they were going to have not one, but two officials handling this match, one in ring, one on the floor.
No, go ahead.
And that was to me it was it gave the match a little more importance,
right?
Because you didn't, as a kid, I had never seen them have two officials. Wow, what's going to go on with this? It was odd. Surprisingly, they didn't have one of the officials wasn't anybody famous.
No.
Like, they thought maybe they would have brought in a Lou Thez or a Gene Kaninsky or somebody that, wrestling old fans would know, but, even a Pedro Morales or somebody who Ivan Putski, but they didn't.
That probably would have made more sense if you would have booked it and had like an old. What do you think,
Yeah.
Billy Ray?
You know, it was part of the storyline. It made it seem like the Bulldogs actually had a shot here because they've been getting screwed so much. You know, you have that second official on the outside. I mean, they revisit this angle several times in the future. Even now, you know, they have some type of stipulation to make you think that the face actually has a better shot, a real shot at winning. And that's what they did in WrestleMania 2.
All right, very cool. Now we all know the finish of the match. Basically, we had Davey Boy Smith in the ring, and he had just received the shoulder breaker from Greg the Hammer Valentine. Greg the Hammer Valentine then picking him up after the 2 count. Very, very arrogant. Now, he could have probably gotten the 3 back then, but he decided not to. Now, out of nowhere, now this was like a shocking quick finish for me. Out of nowhere, you had Davey Boy. Oh, I'm sorry, you had Dynamite Kid kind of perched on the corner, with his head kind of sticking over and you see Davey Boy drive the Greg the Hammer Valentine's head into the head of the other Bulldog, Dynamite Kid. He goes down as Brutus Beefcake is trying to come into the ring to break up the 3 count. This is where the second referee, who comes up huge, he grabs the leg of Brutus Beefcake, and you get the 1, 2, 3. Guys, your opinion on the finish?
Oh, the finish was phenomenal, and it was you could hear if you 2 things you get to hear on this. One is that you hear Dynamite yelling for him, yelling head, and Davey takes him and rams him in, and they smacked heads, bro. You could hear them smack heads.
Yeah.
Greg obviously tumbled back near unconscious to the mat. But the other part of the story is Dynamite went flying off of the ring apron and smacked his head. Legit, from what I've heard in the past, that he legitimately went headfirst into the concrete, split his dome wide open, and he was unable to even speak. It was probably one of a major concussion time of the numerous ones he's had, and he was not even able to comment on the Davey Boy talked at the end of the match when they had the we're the British Bulldogs, and we said if we won the match, we were going to stay in America, and we're staying. Dynamite was in friggin' La La Land.
Yeah.
And they were just basically even holding him up, and they walked away. But it was a brutal head hit. And Dynamite's head, of course, was notoriously like granite.
Billy Ray?
Yeah, the end of the match was perfect for me because the Bulldogs won. So I was like, yeah, British Bulldogs win. It was amazing. One thing that I took from it was while Dynamite was on the floor bleeding, everybody else was in the ring celebrating. You see Ozzy Osbourne and Captain Lou with the title belts. Like, we won, we're taking it back to England. The Bulldogs are outside. The freaking Dynamite Kid is decimated outside. I mean, can't talk. Nobody seems to care. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually, that is, dude, that's funny because I thought the exact same thing. I'm like, and by the way, was it just me, or was Ozzy Osbourne coked out of his mind? British Bulldogs forever!
He was coked to the gills. I've never heard any stories, but there had to be stories of Ozzy.
Oh my God.
Imagine Ozzy back in the 80s with the WWF locker room. How much cocaine was flying around back there? Something like Scarface. Bro.
Oh my God.
How many chickens,
Allegedly.
How many chickens lost severed heads? I mean,
oh my God! No, seriously,
how many chickens lost their heads?
But honestly, the match itself wasn't a long match in time, but it was so important. There was so much emotion. The fans were so into it. They took some pretty big bumps, like you said. Dynamite Kid. Listen, that wasn't a work. That was legit. He was legit. He was legit hurt. And you have Mean Gene Okerlund. Oh, they can barely speak. Yeah, no kidding. The guy's freaking, his brain is halfway out of his head probably, which they didn't show him on camera much.
No, they didn't show the bleeding. They talked about it, but you didn't see it.
Yeah, Billy Ray?
Yeah, same as I said before. He was laid out, and I was really concerned, and Davey Boy went into the ring and he cut his victory promo, I guess, while Dynamite was still outside. And then you see Dynamite being assisted to the back afterwards. You did see some of that. He was legit hurt.
That and of course Bill Schuyler alluding to the fact that Davey Boy Smith saying to the fans, if we won the tag team titles, we would stay in America, and this is where we're gonna stay. We're gonna stay here in America, which they probably would have stayed anyway. But anyway, I thought it was a phenomenal match. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to hear from you guys. Leave your comments here below. If there is an old school match that you guys are interested in listening to, hear us break down, leave your comments below here at 1wrestling.com, YouTube /1wrestling video, or hit us up on Twitter. We'll give you the Twitter handles later on again. So now, you have any closing comments about this match before we move on to the dream match in our closing segment?
Bill, go ahead.
I would say that the importance of the British Bulldogs as a tag team in the WWF at the time was the fact that you had, obviously, Davey Boy was a prototypical size wrestler that WWF was known for, although he was not quite as tall,
No.
as the guys they liked. So these guys were a smaller team, and Dynamite very much so. But in the singles matches that Dynamite had with Bret Hart and others coming up through, he was able to prove that they could have smaller wrestlers that put asses in seats.
Right.
And they had huge fans and sold large amounts of merchandise. And that got, amped up a little more later on, as we had said. Matilda came into it. Then you had the stuffed dogs.
Right.
But the British Bulldogs proved, and any wrestler from that time period would tell you that pound for pound, nobody was tougher than Dynamite in or out of the ring. He was much feared outside of the ring. That's definitely stories for another day about what things went on with him in and out, but not to take away from his career. And it's they definitely changed tag team wrestling for the WWE.
Oh yeah, and
without a doubt.
And before Billy Ray, I asked your last opinion on this match. Just so you know, the British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith was 5'11".
Wow.
Right.
He's 5'11", and Dynamite Kid was only 5'8". So think about those two guys getting over in a giant-filled WWF at the time. But Billy Ray?
Well, Dynamite Kid was such a dynamic wrestler, like Dynamite, you understand? Like, he would get over anywhere, and it's the same now. You don't have to be super big to get over. You just got to be good. And the impact that the British Bulldogs left on the tag team division is ridiculous. They went on to feud with the Hart Foundation. They feuded with the Hart Foundation previous to the Dream Team, actually, and then they went back to a Hart Foundation feud. And they also feuded with the Islanders when they stole Matilda, and I was pissed off about that to this day. I still want an English Bulldog because of the British Bulldogs. You know what I mean? Like, that's my dream dog. Anyway, I digress. This is just one of the greatest tag teams I've ever seen, personally, and I wish their WWE, WWF run was longer than it was, because then Dynamite and Davey Boy disappeared for a certain amount of time. I didn't know where they went because I didn't have anything but basic television and until Davey Boy reappeared.
No, I agree 100%, and again, definitely the British Bulldogs left an indelible mark, and of course, obviously, Davey Boy Smith going on in his career to become a superstar in the WWE, never winning the world title, which I think he should have won, but that's, like Bill says, a story for another day.
It was politics.
It was politics. Bill,
HBK and
right, Bill, hit your camera, turn it off and on real quick. So we're gonna move on to the dream match of the week, and again, this is one of my very favorite segments, the dream match of the week. And the dream match of this week. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually break down the rules of the dream match. I'm going to tell you who the competitors of the dream match is going to be. And then I'm going to ask each one of you guys how you would book the match. And then I'll give my final opinion, if that's okay with you. Alright, so now, since we've been talking British Bulldogs, we've been talking about good in-ring wrestling, as I call it, we're going to have late 80s Dynamite Kid versus early 2000s Kurt Angle in 30-minute Iron Man match. Bill Schuyler, how would you book this match? Who wins?
This match, you want as far as this would be a back and forth with just tremendous amounts of scientific wrestling from the go. These guys are not going to get into a physical until much later on. I say by the end of the night, though, the winner definitely would be Kurt Angle.
Okay, Lewis?
Well, this would be the ultimate match for me. I think Kurt Angle is one of the best all-around pro wrestlers that I've ever seen, and the Dynamite Kid is when I was a kid just the best. I think if anybody's not familiar with the Dynamite Kid, they can go back and watch things like styles like today, like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla or stuff in ROH. That's reminiscent of the Dynamite Kid. That's what the Dynamite Kid was all about in the 80s. He was doing stuff like that, and he was just amazing. Him versus Kurt Angle, incredible match. I think it would be slow in the beginning. I think they would have a lot of face-offs like Rob Van Dam would have with people when they would face off like this afterwards, after they did a whole sequence of moves. I think they would do something to that effect, and a lot of chain wrestling, and then they start picking it up towards the end with a lot of high spots, flipping through the ropes and moonsaults and a whole deal. Ultimately, I think Kurt Angle would probably win via tap out. But big kudos to the Dynamite Kid and what would have been a 5-star match.
All right, now,
without a doubt.
Now again, remember the rules of this match. It is an Iron Man match, so it's a series of pins or submissions that actually win the match. So, Bill Schuyler, I'm going to ask you: who would you book as the heel or a babyface, or would you have them both as babyfaces in this match?
This again, I think this one would start out. I would actually have Kurt Angle more as a heel. I think he would come in as the arrogant Kurt Angle of old. Even though he perpetrated being the American hero, he was always better than everybody else. And I think he definitely would think that he would be better than the little guy from England.
Right.
And I could see him talking like that, and just saying how you don't have, hey little guy, I won a gold medal with a broken frickin' neck. What did you do?
Yeah, you walked around with a freaking dirty, smelly dog or something like that. Right.
I would definitely have Angle. Kurt Angle as the heel, Dynamite. Starting out as the face, but I think this would be, again, I agree, it would start out as a catch can, back and forth, but it would get nasty as the pins or submissions began to add up. I think you would see the brutality of the Dynamite Kid come out, and the Dynamite Kid had a lot of intense, brutal moves, and I think if anybody could handle him in the ring would be a Kurt Angle. I think back to just the matches that Kurt had with the guys who idolized Dynamite Kid, especially Chris Benoit. Their matches and feuds they had were off the charts.
Right. And
if that was just a taste of what could have happened from the original, I just think it would definitely 5-star match +5. I mean, it would be a mind blower of a match. And I think I could see that definitely going. That 30-minute match would be something, it wouldn't be 1 or 2 falls in that match. I think it would wind up building up as it went. I think it would be very slow in the beginning, not too many pins or submissions at all. But at the end, it would. I could see Kurt just hitting those triple suplexes and the moonsault. Just so much that Kurt can put into the game. And Dynamite, of course, dropping that headbutt. I could see him definitely getting the pin off of at least one of those.
Absolutely.
And it would be definitely a suplex happy match. Those guys would be suplexing the living hell out of each other.
What do you think there, Billy Ray?
Well, now that you say the suplex, the Dynamite Kid was known for the snap suplex, so I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't want to leave that out. As far as the match itself, I would have them both be faces, personally, and not even in America. I would book it in Japan somewhere. I'd want to see that because I remember matches between the Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask, classic matches over in Japan. And me, I'm a wrestling fan. I like the drama, I like the storyline, I like all that, but more than anything else, I like the wrestling. And between these two guys in the ring, that would have been magic. I'd like to see it in Japan when everybody's quiet and then some high spot comes on. Everybody cheers. And it would have been a classic match that I would have found on the internet somewhere in Pro Wrestling Noah that I wouldn't be able to get here. And it just would have been great to watch. Both of them as faces, and I think Kurt Angle goes over via submission.
Now, I was watching WWF Volume 1 the other day, and they had, if you guys can tell me, I can't remember who the second competitor was, but I know Tiger Mask was wrestling for, at the time, the WWF junior heavyweight title, and I believe the other wrestler under the mask was in fact Dynamite, a young Dynamite kid. I can't remember his mask gimmick name in the WWE, but let me tell you guys something. Watch WWF Volume 1, Best of WWF Volume 1, and you will see one of the greatest technical high-flying matches you have ever seen in your life. Now, I'm going to give my opinion on this. And we're going to close with this. We have Dynamite Kid versus Kurt Angle. I definitely see Kurt Angle, Dynamite Kid taking the brunt, because Kurt Angle is definitely so strong. But I do see Dynamite Kid, the fans really getting on his side with the fact that he shows so much heart. It'll be like a Kurt Angle Chris Benoit match, and it's funny. Chris Benoit basically, and I always felt that Chris Benoit, and yes, we're allowed to say that here. Chris Benoit is was a almost like a Dynamite Kid clone, if you will, and he came along at the right time. He is what Dynamite Kid would have been, I believe, if Dynamite Kid was around the Attitude Era. Yes, Lewis.
3 generations. Dynamite Kid, then it was Chris Benoit, and right now it's Davey Richards. They are the Dynamite Kid.
I would also throw in, again, I know he's hurt, and I know his moveset is held back, but I think Danny O'Brien is also in that, again, this is my opinion, I think Danny O'Brien is also in that, along that creed of talent, and don't forget AJ Styles. I mean, there's so many great...
A lot of influence, yeah. I mean, he made the cruiser division a viable thing. He changed Japanese wrestling.
Sure.
For the most part. There's so much that Dynamite is responsible for in the industry that would not be the same that we have today.
Well, the way I would have booked the match, I would have them go. Now, you guys probably think I'm crazy, but I would actually have them go almost 25 minutes without a pinfall. There'll be a lot of close pinfalls. I mean, Kurt Angle would hit the angle slam. Davey, Dynamite Kid would definitely hit that flying headbutt and whatever other finisher he would do at the time. Dragon suplex, which was another one of his moves that he wasn't allowed to use, I think, in the WWE much around that time, but he did use it under the mask. The snap suplex. Anyway, I can't see Dynamite Kid actually tapping out. I see him maybe passing out. The referee, I don't think they can stop the match during an Iron Man match, so I see maybe Kurt Angle with a huge spot, maybe one of those top rope angle slams to maybe put the kid away. Now, again, don't forget, man, during an Iron Man match, you can use chairs, you can use tables, you can use whatever the hell you want during that match. Right. There are basically no rules. Maybe a table comes into play. Maybe Kurt Angle sets a table up outside. Maybe he hits an angle slam from the curtain onto the floor, dragging an almost lifeless Dynamite Kid into the ring and pinning him for the 1, 2, 3. And then just before Dynamite Kid maybe has his arm draped around over Kurt Angle for that final 1, 2, 3, the bell rings, and Kurt Angle wins 1-0. But again, guys, this is all, I love talking this stuff because it's stuff that would have never happened. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we want to hear from you guys. Give us some ideas, and we had some great, and number one, I want to let you guys know, Bill, Schuyler, and Lewis, we're getting some really good reception. Please spread the word. We're trying to grow the show. We want to know what your opinions are regarding the old school wrestling. We want to know what your ideas would be great for a dream match, new segments, so on and so forth. Guys, hit us up. Don't forget to follow my brother Bill Schuyler at You Got the Show, of course. And I want to give a big plug to my buddy Billy Ray Valentine, who has a great podcast. Why don't you give us the information on that podcast and then give us your Twitter handle, buddy?
It's Lewis, Billy Ray Valentine to you guys. You know what I mean? PW Hustle. It's you could look for it on iTunes. Subscribe on iTunes. It's called PW Hustle. One word, PW Hustle. Or you can find it on Podbean, pwhustle.podbean.com.
All right, man. And again, ladies and gentlemen, you know me. I say this every single time. I would do this for a living, but if I can, I would do it anyway. Why? Because I love talking wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget to follow us here at 1wrestling.com, YouTube /1wrestling video. Follow us on Twitter at 1wrestling. Follow Bill Apter at After1Wrestling, myself at Big Ray Show. Again, Bill Schuyler at You Got the Show, and our good buddy Billy Ray Valentine at Billy Ray Hustle. Guys, this has been episode number 3 of 1 Wrestling Goes Old School. Thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget to leave your comments below. We'll see you next time. Or, as Bill Schuyler would say,
see you down the road.
peace.